Hey there guys, how are you doing? Welcome back to Rule of Two Review, and today is going to be officially my last pre-E3 video. I will of course be discussing a lot of things about E3 while it's happening, trying to sum up what happens with all the big press conferences. Of course, discussing Nintendo at length. I should be making it back to the Juices Loose podcast. I should also be making it to possibly even another podcast we may do after Nintendo's conference. Maybe, maybe not. Not quite sure what's happening there. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be a busy week, but this is going to be the last time I talk about anything related to E3 before we're actually getting official concrete information. So what I wanted to do was take one last opportunity to touch base with you guys and sort of just give out my last final predictions and kind of set in stone some of the last few things I think may actually happen from the big companies at the show. So let's just jump right into it and start off with Sony. Now, it should be noted that I might be repeating a lot of the things you might have heard me say from my Big Bets videos that I made about a week or two ago, where I discussed Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, and even Ubisoft and Square and stuff a little bit. I might be repeating some of that stuff, but there's going to be some scenarios where I'm recapping some of those details, and in other instances I'll be just kind of giving out new information and guesses and sort of predictions, my final E3 predictions before the show happens in a couple of days. So, starting off with Sony, I'll recap pretty much everything that I feel we can probably expect from Sony on stage. Reiterating a point, I do not expect VR to be on stage. I should say there's a small possibility we get a slight mention of VR, but overall I don't expect it to have a very big or significant presence on stage. I think that Square will be present on Sony's stage discussing something. I mean, it could be a variety of different things. It could be brand new content for Final Fantasy 15. I think that that's going to be coming sometime soon, and I could see it being like a first on PlayStation 4 kind of thing. So maybe something for Final Fantasy 15. Maybe they detail Dragon Quest 11 a little bit further. I expect that at their own show, but maybe also on Sony's stage. Final Fantasy 7 might show up, of course. I do think that we're probably going to hear from that in some capacity this year. Kingdom Hearts 3, it's not going to happen. I don't expect to see it anywhere. It's not going to be on Sony's stage. It's not going to be at Square's stage. I'm sure that Days Gone is going to make another appearance on Sony's stage as well. That was their big closer last year. Pretty divisive game. I thought it looked pretty cool. A lot of people didn't. That's totally fine, but I expect to see it further showcased at this year's show. I think From Software is going to have a game announced or showed or revealed or something on stage at Sony's show. I think From Software might have that shown at a few different places. One of the places their new game may show up, I think, is on Sony's stage. What that's going to be, I'm not quite yet ready to commit, but I think we'll probably see it. God of War, I discussed this before. I think we're going to get more information on it. I think we're going to get the release date, if at least the release window. Like they might say summer 2018 or fall 2018, something like that. Maybe not exactly like a day and date, but they're going to give us information, hopefully a new trailer, hopefully some like legit gameplay, make it playable at the show. One weird thing I think Sony's going to do, because they love to do this stuff, I think that they're going to spend some time, this is a subjective one, guys, they're going to spend some time on some sort of feature or ability about the PS4 that isn't interesting, which is why it's suggestive, because I think that would be an opinion-based thing. But, you know, they tend to do that stuff where they talked about, like, remote play for the Vita, or they talked about the Powers TV show, or they talk about, I don't know, mail that they received from fans or something a couple of years ago. Just weird stuff. They tend to take a portion of their stage presence, their stage show, I should say, and they just talk about something that isn't like Sony PlayStation video game related stuff, at least not directly. And I think they're going to do that again, and so we're going to have this weird awkward 10 or 15 minutes where it's like none of us care about this stuff, just talk about games. That's what I think is going to happen. And an interesting and exciting one for me is I think we can probably expect to see something from Star Wars on stage at Sony's show. And obviously, yes, we're going to see a lot of Star Wars things coming from EA at their EA Play event over the weekend, around the time you're probably watching this, actually. And that's going to be great. I can't wait. I'm going to be watching that while I'm working, actually, irresponsibly. But I think that we're also going to see something on stage, whether it's a game demo for Battlefront, like more information about Battlefront 2, maybe it's one of the other games showcased, maybe they reveal a game with EA on stage. Something PlayStation 4, Sony related, Star Wars related, I think is going to be present on stage during Sony's conference. Okay, let's move on to Microsoft a little bit, which is a pretty interesting company to discuss as far as E3 goes. Of course, a couple of days ago I made a video discussing the situation with Microsoft. Is it do or die, so to speak, for them? And they're in a pretty interesting situation going into the show, and I expect some pretty big things coming from them. I really hope they have a good show. They may not, but I hope that they do. So a couple of things I'm expecting from Microsoft. I think we will get a slightly more significant talk about VR from Microsoft than we will probably at Sony's, which seems really weird, which is why I wanted to talk about it, because Sony has already like their own proprietary VR, hardware on the market. You'd think they would spend more time on it. I think they're getting ready to shy away from that stuff. With Microsoft, I think they're just getting ready to maybe start to build something, and we know that they have some sort of partnership with Oculus. I don't expect like a huge VR thing or a blowout, but I think that they'll discuss the Oculus thing. They might debut a game or two on stage. There are some theories and rumors that say maybe the Halo thing that 343 is bringing to the show is actually a Halo VR experience. And I'm not ready to totally jump onto that or commit to that theory, but it does make sense, and I could actually see it being something really weird like that. I hope not. That would be not interesting. I'd rather just show Halo 6 or my theory of Halo Reach, which is, by the way, another thing I think we will see is hopefully we're going to get Halo Reach remaster or something like that. I do also think From Software in some weird way is going to be present on stage. And I know that that sounds crazy because you wouldn't expect such a Japanese-centric company to be on stage at Microsoft's press conference. But I think that Microsoft is working to try to fix that. I think Scalebound was them trying to work with the Japanese developer, and obviously it blew up in their faces. But, I even talked about this a couple of months ago. Phil Spencer has been going to Japan to try to court Japanese developers. Maybe one of them is From Software. And I could see From Software and Microsoft trying to make a push on something like maybe I guess not Bloodborne, because that would be Sony, and I can't say Dark Souls 4, but whatever it is that they would do, whatever From Software is doing, there might be something about From Software that we could see potentially on stage at Microsoft show. And I know that that's a bold prediction, which is why I wanted to throw it on here, because I don't think many people would agree with that or see it. So I think that might happen. Obviously, Scorpio is the big to-do when it comes to Microsoft and E3 this year. Basic things I've already discussed. We're going to see the console, we're going to get the price, we're going to get the release date, we're going to get the controller, assuming the controller is different, and I think it might be slightly different. So I think we're going to get a lot of that stuff. Reiterating another point and a big bet I made about this that I want to stick to is I think that we're going to get some brand new first-party or exclusive game to the Xbox brand that is going to launch right alongside the Scorpio. And then I think Microsoft is going to push as this ultimate Scorpio experience that you can pick up the same day and date as your brand new Scorpio. And obviously, their messaging right now is every game is not exclusive to the Scorpio. It's going to be available for the Scorpio and the Xbox One. And I do believe that for the first year or two that will be true. So I think that it would be, let's say it was like Crackdown. I'll just pretend it's Crackdown, and maybe they really bring back Crackdown and they showcase it and they push that it's going to look the best and play the best, and it's been made to really run optimally on the Scorpio. And yes, we've got this Xbox One game, but really you want to get it on the Scorpio, and so that when the Scorpio launches, everyone wants to also run out and buy Crackdown. And it's this big marketing push. They're selling hardware and software all at the same time around the time that the Scorpio launches, and it's a smart business move. And if they did that with a game like Crackdown, for example, it's kind of the same sort of idea that Nintendo did with Breath of the Wild, if you think about it. So I think we might see a similar situation there. Weirdly, I think we might get a brand new exclusive game to the Xbox One that is specifically not a shooter or not a racing game. And I very obviously picked out those two genres because we primarily see those kinds of experiences on the Xbox consoles. And I do love that. I mean, I don't really play the racing games, but I love the shooters. I love Halo and Gears of War, and I played Titanfall and Call of Duty and stuff on my Xbox, and Doom. So I think that stuff is great on the Xbox because it's my favorite controller on the market right now. But I think that they're going to try, in this world where I think Microsoft wants to try to rebrand themselves and fix their image and start to take, win back ground against Sony and also fight off the oncoming onslaught from Nintendo, they probably are realizing those kinds of experiences that you can find on Nintendo and Sony consoles, like, I don't know, colorful, fun platformers or weird puzzle games, all these different things that we associate with Nintendo's kinds of games. They might release something that feels more like that you might normally see from a Nintendo game, like a Donkey Kong or a Yoshi's Woolly World, or even like a Ratchet and Clank on a Sony console, and they might try to get something like that exclusive to the Xbox One. I think we will see a big push for a game like that. Kind of like what Cuphead is, but I don't think it would be Cuphead. I think it's Cuphead. I think it's going to be something different from Cuphead, but something maybe like that. I would really like to see them do that. I do think that, you know, Halo, I already said, is probably going to be present. Maybe it's Halo Reach, maybe it's Halo VR. I think Minecraft is going to be discussed in a big way. There's talks about would they ever do a Minecraft 2, but I guess that the ecosystem for Minecraft doesn't really allow for that, so maybe some sort of big feature or update or just a brand new evolution of what Minecraft is, I think might be discussed this year, which would be very smart for Microsoft to do, especially if they made that, like, exclusive to the Xbox One and the Scorpio for the first year or something. I think that'd be pretty huge. And obviously PC and Windows and stuff. And lastly, I think Assassin's Creed is going to get a big focus and a big feature on stage from Microsoft this year. And we've seen them do that in the past, but where we see an era where Sony is more and more getting like the Destiny exclusive stuff and the Call of Duty exclusive stuff and the Watch Dogs exclusive stuff and all these things, I think that Microsoft wants to start fighting back with that, and I could see Assassin's Creed being that series where all of a sudden the big push from Ubisoft and Microsoft is Assassin's Creed, and you get exclusive stuff on the Xbox, or it's it's here for you get the DLC first on Xbox or whatever. I think the big feature and showcase for Assassin's Creed outside of Ubisoft's conference is also going to be on stage with Microsoft. And lastly, let's talk about the big one, the exciting one, the one that you're most excited to hear. Let's recap a little bit more details on what I think will probably happen with Nintendo. Now, there's been a lot of details when it comes to Nintendo since I last made my video, and today there was a lot of discussion. We've had a Pokemon Direct that gave us some sort of insight into what might happen, and it's basically been confirmed that their spotlight is only going to be 30 minutes, so how much time are they going to dedicate to this, that, or the other, or whatever? And that's kind of why it's going to be pretty fun to do this. So I will reiterate, even though this has changed a little bit in my mind with today's info, I still ultimately think the spotlight will be the Mario show. Now, if it's 30 minutes long, the Mario show, the idea of it being the Mario show, could mean just 10 minutes of the 30 minutes is dedicated just to Mario Odyssey, and then the other 20 minutes is dedicated to everything else they want to showcase in whatever spotlight format they want to, and then we're on to the Treehouse at 9:30. And that certainly could be the case. So I feel like they're going to spend a good amount of time showing a couple of things about Mario Odyssey during the spotlight specifically, and then when it comes to the Treehouse, forget about it. We're going to see so much Mario, it's going to be ridiculous. They're going to do a smaller version, I think, of what the Breath of the Wild thing was before, whereas Breath of the Wild was like 90% of their Treehouse last year. I think we could see something where Mario alone takes up like 40% of all the Treehouse stuff, and all the other games are split up between that other 60%, which would be pretty significant if you think about it. So we're going to mostly be seeing and hearing from Mario this year. I think we're going to get the date for Xenoblade, and yes, I have said, in the West, I believe it's going to be delayed to 2018, and I'm sticking to that. But whatever the date is, 2017, 2018, whatever, I think we will get the date for Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for sure. I think we're going to get one surprise Switch game. And it's tricky because knowing that the spot... For me, let me bring it back a second. For myself, I only expect surprises and game reveals to truly come at the spotlight. And then they do like this dinner party thing at the end of the first night where Miyamoto, like a round table, and sometimes they reveal new stuff like Smash Brothers Brawl was released that way. We might get something like that. When it comes to the Treehouse, some people wanted to talk on Twitter today like this is when we might see new stuff show up. We won't, you guys. I just don't think that the Treehouse is going to be where they're going to reveal new stuff. I think revelations will come from the spotlight if they want to squeeze it into that 30 minutes. And maybe at other little intervals like overnight, or if they do stuff like that between the days. The Treehouse streaming is just not going to be a place where they're going to reveal a brand new game. They're just not. I mean, I would love it if they did, you guys, but I don't expect that. So I definitely expect the spotlight to be the only place we're going to get new games. Now that we know it's only 30 minutes, I don't expect as many surprises as I did before. I think we might get very little. But I will say I think we're going to get one surprise Switch game. And I will amend that it's other than the Mario and Rabbids game, because that is not going to count as a surprise if, in fact, we see it. I think everyone already knows about that. So I think if that's there, great, but it's not going to be the surprise. We'll get another surprise, and I think it's going to be a third-party game in some fashion. whether it's an exclusive game or whether it's something like Call of Duty World War II, who knows, but we're going to get that surprise Switch game. I've already said this a million times. You've heard me say it. No Metroid. Not happening. Rob's stamp of approval. We will not see Metroid at E3 2017. Not at all. And if so, I will absolutely get on stage, get on camera for you guys and admit that I was wrong and then cry tears of joy because I want it to happen. I'm not too proud that I won't admit that I'm wrong, but I'm not going to be wrong. We're not going to see Metroid this year, guys. I do think we're going to get new DS games announced at E3 this year, guys. And maybe it comes at the spotlight, maybe not. They have kind of made it sound with their verbiage that it's going to be Switch games in the spotlight only. But I think that in some way they're going to reveal new 3DS games. And again, I don't expect that to happen at the Treehouse, but I do think that however Nintendo decides to do it, spotlight it overnight in different trailer releases, whatever, by the time E3 concludes, we will have new DS games announced, absolutely. I think they are going to discuss Splatoon quite a bit. Some people want to think that maybe they won't. We were talking about that on Twitter today. Also, I think they're going to discuss a lot about Splatoon 2, and I think that they're going to give us even more features or modes, things we don't yet know about when it comes to Splatoon that they didn't feature in any of the directs so far. I think that they're going to use E3 as a huge push for Splatoon 2, and they should do that absolutely. I think it's a very, very smart thing for them to do. Here, the last two ones are big, okay? So first, I'll go to this. The Virtual Console is not going to be dated. It might not even be discussed, and even if it is, it might be something like, and the Virtual Console, we know you're all excited, we'll talk more about that soon. That Nintendo loves to do that. It's really frustrating and aggravating. But they're going to do something like that. We're not going to get a date. We're not going to get to find details. I know it sucks. It's wrong. Nintendo should let us know what's happening, but they're not going to do it at E3 this year. And lastly, my big thing for Nintendo, we are not going to hear from Smash Brothers. Everyone and their mom thinks we're getting Smash Brothers Deluxe. Smash Brothers Wii U is coming to the Switch. It's going to happen right here and now. And I get that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was a huge hit, and Pokémon's coming now. We know about that. And Monster Hunter's coming, and yes, like Lego City happened. I get it. So there's a pretty good chance Smash does come. Absolutely, I'm with you guys in that respect. I don't 100% buy in, but it would seem silly for them not to do it. However, I just don't think that this year at E3, next week, 2017, I don't feel like that's the time they're going to announce it. If that game is coming, which is likely, not yet guaranteed, if it comes, I think it's going to be announced later in the year, like maybe in like a fall direct or something. For like a next year title for the Switch. I think that that would be pretty smart. So I do not expect to see Smash talked about, at least Smash Wii U Deluxe, whatever. I don't expect to see that talked about at E3 this year. So that's it, guys. I'm going to end this video. Tried to make it as quick and short as possible, but I wanted to quickly go over, reconfirm a couple of the big, bets and predictions that I made about all the companies so far, and then also add a couple of new ones for all the companies because it's the most fun thing to do. So that's it. This is the last pre-E3 video, guys. Definitely tell me what you guys think about all these bets and predictions and everything I'm laying out. Do you agree with some of what I said? Do you disagree? What do you think is going to happen here? Obviously, I know most people will be discussing Nintendo, I'm sure, but it was fun for me to throw Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo all into one video. So that's it. Next video is probably going to be me discussing something official from E3 once it's actually started and all the games and announcements and fun stuff has kind of kicked off. So it's going to be great. Can't wait for the weekend. Can't wait for next week. It's going to be awesome. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Live to Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.